Today we're building a prison for our electronic brain. Some call me mad for my wanton creation of technology. Some call me reckless. Some call me Pearlybrook. Jhen f***ing Pearlybrook. Well, friends, fear not. Your concerns have been noted. I assure you that here at Pearlybrook, we take apocalyptic safety very seriously. So today, we create a prison, a home, and a refuge, all in one. This video does indeed build upon the last, as the next will build upon this, and so on and so forth, until the end of days. Those dark, bleak, automated end times, where Jhen Pearlybrook rests atop his mountainous skull throne. Sorry, in case you missed the last video, let me summarize it for you. There's just one problem. Got it? Good. Do try to keep up. We've got a lot to do if we want to avoid extinction at the hands of our electronic brain. I've already caught it eyeing the kitchen knife when it thought I wasn't looking. Well, joke's on you, brain. Jhen Pearlybrook is always watching. You see, every good, wholesome, homemade prison is made of glass. So we're encasing our brain here inside this old glass bottle I picked up from the thrift store. I don't want it to actually look like a bottle, though. In fact, it should look something like a steampunk glass tube. So we need something on top and bottom of our glass bottle to cover its disgusting lines and wrinkles. Some oak, perhaps, rounded out into a delightfully circular shape. There's just one problem. My mini-lathe lacks the girth of those guys' lathes you see in the movies. Those ones filmed in those dingy bathrooms. You know the ones. Well, if you've seen my previous video about making wheels, you know it's not about the size of the lathe, but how you use it. And in this case, we're going to be using the milling machine. A little known hack is that anything that spins can technically be used as a makeshift lathe. Why, I have half a mind to prop my van up and strap this piece of wood to a tire. But today we don't need to do so. This little arbor holds a piece of stock securely in the head of the mill. There we spin the stock, as a lathe does. Clamp a lathe tool in the vise and use the mill's positionable table to position our tooling. Thus do we create circles. Thus do we complete the circle of life. For once this oak was tree, now it is man. For are we all not but circles? Well, anyway, a hole saw makes quick work of the inner circles. No makeshift lathe shenanigans here. I made two of these circular oaken men. One for the top of the bottle and one for the bottom. These pieces form the clamping apparatus that holds the glass prison firmly in place. And so the top one needs something extra for the glass to push up against. A small piece of 1/4-inch oak-clad plywood will do, which, since we already have the major circle in place for guidance, can be formed just fine on the lathe with a bit of rasping persuasion. Which brings us to the most important part of our glass prison. Jhen Pearlybrook's gigantic brass balls. Well, actually, they're pretty modestly sized, but don't tell anyone that, okay? I don't have a big enough vehicle to compensate. These are the last of the brass balls from this old dangling clock apparatus that I got for cheap at the local flea market. The other went atop the alarm clock we built a while back. They got internally threaded and thread onto the exposed screws sticking from the uprights. Thus do these shiny metal balls clamp the entire prison together forevermore, or at least until they're unscrewed. Lastly, because my nearest size hole saw was a bit too large to exactly fit this particular glass bottle, we need some felt. Of all the materials used in this project, the one that felt most thematically appropriate was this felt. And with that, our prison cell is complete. Well, except for this hole at the bottom. But every good prison needs at least one good hole. How else are we gonna make a movie out of it? Well, truth be told, I don't feel like crawling through a mile of sewage pipes twice in 1 week, so why don't I just tell you what this hole is really here for? This is how we interface with our electronic brain. How we poke and prod at it. How we conduct our grand experiments with it. By passing exactly 38 wires down through this hole, we gain access to all 37 of the exposed pins on this ESP32 room module. From there, these wires are routed to an exposed set of pins on the outside of the more administrative side of our prison complex. But first, we need some way to interface with these wires, for wires alone make for poor mating. Trust me on this one. 2 DB15s and a DB9, for a total of 39 pins for our 38 wires, which connect to 37 usable solder pads. On the other side of these connectors is a PCB, lovingly routed and soldered. But of course, our modestly sized, conveniently placed prison escape hole doesn't look big enough to pass one of these serial port connectors through, and that's because it isn't. What good is a prison escape hole if no prisoners can escape through it? With a bit of machining, the hole becomes a slot, just big enough to finagle a single one of these connectors through at a time. The brainstem likewise needs some way that we can remove the brain from it in times of prison escape. For that, I cut out the backside of it, allowing for the ESP32's wires to be stuffed inside, but also removed whenever we need. From the front, where any respectable man is looking anyway, the prison escape hole turned slot isn't particularly visible, exactly as was planned all along. From the back, though, perhaps after we lose our temper and throw a rock through a poster, the escape becomes manifest in the eyes of the beholder. But, Mr. Pearlybrook, how are we gonna know which of these pins goes to which wire, which goes to which pad? Well, Cheryl, let me tell you a tale. A tale of heartbreak, of sorrow, but ultimately a tale of triumph. My first proposed solution to our labeling conundrum was to use some of this copper-clad PCB material and the router to carve out some lettering in some language known only to the machine gods. Well, not being one to settle for the first solution I think of, I instead opted to use laser. By painting the top of some piece of metal, in this case the same copper-clad material, and laser engraving away the bits that aren't desired, we get a two-tone labeling system, or such is the idea. I've done this plenty of times in the past, usually to make acid-etched circuit boards, but this time, I got lazy and tried to brush the paint on instead of spraying it. Oh, how my hubris threatened destruction of all our plans. For the laser worked. The paint did not. In brushing off the paint residue from the surface, disaster struck. The letters, the very soul of the labels we're trying to make, fell off with the detritus of lasered past. And so were we left with nothing. No paint, no labels, no dignity. Naked and alone, I somehow found the strength to trudge on. But where to turn? For if the second idea didn't work, and the third idea never came, then the only option left is the first. Oh, how my hubris laughs at my sorrow. To journey forth on a quest of discovery only to find oneself back where they started. No prize for the effort save humiliation. And so it was that I routed these labels in copper. So it was that I was humbled by the sweet hum of 20,000 revolutions per minute. So it was that I labeled our pins at long last. Anyway, with our pins labeled and our GPIOs broken out, we can finally move on to creating the rest of our prison. For that, I used a hodgepodge of random bits of scrap wood I had laying around. A piece of fence post that didn't get used on my workbench. Throw it in the soup. Some poplar-clad 3/4 inch plywood. That will make for some good seasoning. Throw it in. And finally, some quarter-inch oak-clad plywood I have used for many similar projects in the past. There's nothing particularly interesting in this box build, and that's on account of me not being particularly interesting in woodworking. Don't get me wrong, I don't mind working my wood, it's just that I prefer the cold, unforgiving nature of metal, the golden sheen of brass.
Work.
Now that we have our contractually obligated foot fetish content out of the way, we need to do something about all these split ends and uneven saw cuts. For that, you guessed it, the answer is brass. In this case, some good wholesome L-shaped brass, the most majestic of all letters. But of course, as is often the case when working with drop cuts and salvaged materials, I don't have the correct thickness of brass flat bar to match the L bracket thickness. If you look really closer, even closer, the astute among you will notice that an L bracket is really just two lowercase I brackets put together. In other words, with a bit of sawing directly down this crotch, and a bit of questionable machining, we have successfully turned one of our L brackets into two pieces of flat stock. Just any old brass won't do, though. We need something special for our apocalypse-thwarting prison. Something magnanimous to anoint our shellacked beauty with. We need something that the heralds will sing of for ages to come. We need something hot. You're probably wondering just what in the hell I'm doing with this coal from the wood stove by now. Don't worry, all will be explained in time. And that time is upon us. I've shown this method of finishing brass off on the channel before, but the more I use it, the more I fall in love with how lazy yet undeniably sexy the results are. This coal that we fished from the depths of Mordor forms a harder than brass scratching pad, with a bit of water to get the juices flowing, and a bit of circular motion. The results. Oh, the results. And with that, our prison is complete. You see, by harnessing the power of the electronic brain, we now have access to the entirety of all the secrets in the universe. Just connect one of these pins here with one of these holes up here. Add in a dash of everything else, and voila. You've got yourself a circuit capable of rivaling the sun in magnosity. There's just one final thing. You see this screw here, the one that holds the front plate onto the greater box. Well, it just so happens that somebody didn't think through the whole 2 screws, 1 hole thing, and these 2 screws are itching to go viral. So what to do? We have a gaping hole in the bottom of this front plate already, but no screw can cover the damage that's been done. Beheading. Of course, beheading is the answer to all of life's greatest problems. And now, in a feat of Frankensteinian genius, thus do we fit 2 screws in 1 hole. And with this, our box, our house, our prison is complete. Nay, don't thank me, friends, though you rest your head easy knowing that tonight, for this one precious moment in time, you are safe from the electronic brains of tomorrow. We must always remain vigilant, for on the morrow you never know who else will bring into being another, and another, and another, until the skulls pile high and I sit atop the throne of ages. sorry, I meant to say don't worry. Everything will be fine. Whether we're overtaken by the electronic brains today or tomorrow, you can rest easy knowing that inevitability is our shared fate. And so do you have a friend in me, friend. A friend indeed, friend. But Mr. Pearlybrook, I ask myself, why is your box so large and gaping? Well, first of all, Cheryl, sit down and shut up. All will be revealed in time. In time. In time.